Let's talk about Mickey Joseph, because there has been a ton of conversation around the Nebraska coaching search and the brand that Nebraska is and the expectations that came into the year for the Cornhuskers, myself included. I thought there would be some good things. I thought they would be able to save Scott Frost's job. And of course, the fact of the matter is it didn't work out that way. But now for Nebraska, with just the aura around a program like that, just the title, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, that means something in college football, right? Like, you know Nebraska, whether they're playing well or not, you know who they are. So they have a chance to go get a really big name. Well, here's the question that I don't know has been asked enough. What if it's Mickey Joseph, a guy who gets Nebraska, a guy who played with the athletic director? What if he's the best guy for this job? And I think what he's done so far with this team demands serious consideration. They're right now at 3-4. And let's just make this assumption. Scott Frost, according to his contract, if he had reached 6-6, if they had made a bowl game, there would have been, to my understanding, a raise involved and some sort of verbiage surrounding an extension. So again, it's not written in there in the fine print. It's not black and white. I'm making the assumption 6-6 probably has the conversation for Scott Frost to keep his job. All right. Is that vague enough for everybody? Are we all on the same page with, what could be, should be? All right. We're on the same page with that assumption. Good. What if Mickey Joseph gets him to 6-6? I think that's a fair question, because then it starts to be a matter of Mickey Joseph took this program to a bowl game when he inherited the program, let's just call it what it was, on pretty rough times. Like, people on Twitter have been reaching out to me and tagging me and stuff and saying Nebraska was down bad when Mickey Joseph took it over. If they get to a bowl game, give him the job. So the gauntlet for them the rest of the way to get to 6-6 isn't necessarily easy by any stretch of the imagination, but let's take a look at it. We got Illinois at home this week, a ranked Illinois, mind you. You got Minnesota, good Minnesota team. You go to Michigan, which will be its own issue in itself. Then you got Wisconsin and finish the year at Iowa. So realistically, you're looking pretty closely at Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. Those three, in my mind, are the most winnable games left for Mickey Joseph. So if he hits 6-6, are you really gonna look elsewhere? That's a question for people that make a lot more money and wear suits to work every single day. I don't envy them. I think that it begs the question, because then you have the results to look at. Then it's not so much we're betting on what he could be. It's more so he's done this so far in a program that was playing left-handed for the most part, had their coach fired early in the year, and he got us to a bowl game. I think it's an interesting conversation. The other piece of this to me is the players love him. Like, he has gotten so much traction with being a player's coach and so much buy-in. And to be honest, folks, buy-in is what takes the most time to build. Like, go get whoever you want from the outside. Go get a Matt Rule. Go get a Matt Campbell. Go get a Lane Kiffin, dare I say it. Whoever you want, just insert head coach here. Don't get too upset about the names that I'm saying here. Insert head coach here. You have to then rebuild buy-in. You have to then get those players to trust that coach and say, yes, actually, you're our guy. We're in for how you want to do it. Let's roll. And that takes time. That takes a whole lot of time. And I would ask, is that the time you want to take? Are you okay with waiting a year and a half to get back to where you eventually think you should be? Because Mickey Joseph's got that locker room bought in right now. So that leads me to, honestly, two questions. There's two questions that I think you have to ask, knowing that the locker room is bought in. The first is, do you trust that locker room? Do you trust that those players have an understanding as to what they need to do to get to that championship caliber they expect in Lincoln, Nebraska? Because if you do, then you can trust the fact that they know what's best for them. If you don't, if you think, hey, we maybe have some issues internally, and I don't know this, maybe you think that if you don't trust the locker room, and you say, all right, we think that we know what's best as an administration, we're going to make this decision. It's your choice. That's the question you got to ask, though. The second question is this: do you believe there is a winning culture being established? Because you may not see the ROI this year. This is where you have to gamble a little bit. Do you believe that Mickey Joseph is installing a culture and a way of doing things that's going to win you football games down the road? Because if the answer is yes to both of those questions, you got your guy. There's a gamble whoever you hire. Some have a more proven track record than others, but to some level, you got to believe in something here. Got to believe in someone. And if you think that the locker room is bought in and you trust them, and you believe that there's a culture of winning that's going into place right now, you give Mickey Joseph the job. Simple as that. So here's what I would do. I think you make your list, and you make it a short list. You have maybe 2, 3 at tops, guys that you would reach for. You call them, you make them an offer, you make them say no to you. No name is off limits, as outlandish as you want, and you call them and you make them an offer, or at least interview them and then decide what you want to do from there. But you hear what I'm saying here. You go to your 2 to 3 guys, and if you don't feel comfortable post-interview or whatever it may be, you give it to Mickey Joseph. You don't do this 10 to 15 extensive, names and go through a bunch of interviews and months of a process. Like, you don't make this thing more complicated than it needs to be. Because if you make Mickey Joseph your head coach, I'm just saying this right now, I don't think that you're unhappy at the end of this thing. I really don't. Now, you bet on potential, and like I said, proven track record of guys, and Matt Rule did this, and Matt Campbell's done this. Mickey Joseph, when you hire him, part of that is also about getting behind him and making that decision to make him your head coach great. You give him whatever he needs, whatever he asks for, and you support him to the bitter end. All right? So that's how we feel. If I had to decide today, if I was given the decision to pick whoever Nebraska's head coach should be, I'd have a hard time not saying Mickey Joseph. And I've talked about if we could go to the outside, getting Matt Rule or getting Matt Campbell, and those are the 2 guys I keep on saying because I think they're the best fits. But Mickey Joseph has already got that buy-in, and that is very difficult to establish. So we'll leave it at that. Mickey Joseph has our vote, at least, to be the next head coach for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.